Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my FXmovies .20 channel? Thank you so much. I am John Walker, an ordinary man with an ordinary life. But everything changed one autumn night when I discovered that my wife, Emily, was cheating on me. Everything changed forever. Just yesterday, we were happy, or at least I thought so. Emily and I had a complete marriage with two wonderful kids, Jack and Lucy. Everything changed when Emily started working overtime at the marketing company where she worked. I had no reason to suspect her because I loved her, but there are things you can't ignore forever and signs you can't hide. I started noticing strange messages on her phone late nights when she had to stay at the office. She kept going out to meet old friends, not just once, but repeatedly. And then there were the calls she always quickly hung up on when I walked into the room. These signs kept repeating, and I couldn't help but suspect. But I didn't act right away. I'm not the type of person to make a scene over small things. I wondered if I was just being paranoid. But then one day, while she was in the shower, I accidentally opened her laptop to check on some work documents. An email popped up on the screen. The content was simple, but it hit me like a slap in the face. "Baby, we'll meet tonight. Don't let anyone know." It was an email from Alex Monroe, Emily's co-worker, someone I had heard about many times. I didn't know what to do. The pain, anger, and shame hit me like a wave. I sat there staring at the screen, unable to believe what I was seeing. Emily, my wife, had betrayed me. When Emily walked out of the bathroom, I was ready for the confrontation. "What's going on?" she asked, but I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her, feeling like everything was collapsing. "You and Alex, right?" I couldn't hold back anymore, my voice like a bomb about to explode. She took a step back, then looked at me with panicked eyes. She didn't say anything, just stayed silent. "I don't understand why you do this, Emily. We have a family, 2 kids. Why him? Why do this?" I said, my voice sharp, not taking my eyes off her. She sat down on the bed, holding her head in her hands, not daring to look at me. "He's just a friend, just a coworker. John, you have to trust me." But no, I couldn't trust her anymore. "Don't lie to me anymore, Emily. I know everything. I'm not stupid. How many times have you gone to see him? Where do you go on those nights? Who do you meet?" I shouted, the anger and hurt overwhelming all other emotions. She cried, tears falling that couldn't soothe the rage inside me. "I am sorry. I don't know why this happened. He's just a friend." And then I couldn't control myself. She choked on her words. "Then you couldn't control yourself." That sentence hit me like a stab to the heart. Is that the reason she betrayed me? Why not me? Why him? I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. The whole room seemed to sink into a heavy silence. Part of me wanted to let it go, to forgive her because I still loved her. But another part, the part that was hurting and broken, I couldn't keep living this lie. "If you meet him again, I won't forgive you. He'll never set foot in this house again," I said, my voice resolute. She nodded, her eyes full of regret. I didn't want to live in hesitation, but I also couldn't leave right then. After all, she was still the mother of my beloved children. I couldn't do anything but think about all that had happened. I couldn't bear the feeling of being betrayed like this. I couldn't let everything continue like this. I decided I needed to have a serious talk with Emily, but this time it wouldn't be about forgiveness. It would be to show her that I wasn't the kind of man who could be disrespected like this. I didn't know what I would do, but one thing I was sure of was that Emily could not deceive me again. When I looked at Emily, my heart churned. Everything had changed, not just in my eyes, but in my heart. The promises, the memories, everything seemed to crumble in an instant. We couldn't go back to the way things were. We couldn't live this lie anymore. Yet Emily still sat there, trying to stay calm while the collapse was happening right in front of her. "You can't understand, John. I don't know why this happened," she said, her eyes red, her voice choked. But I didn't want to hear any excuses. I could no longer hear apologies or promises. What I needed was a clear answer, and I wouldn't stop until I got one. "So you don't know?" I looked at her, my voice full of sarcasm. "Then please tell me. Emily, what are you going to do when this life no longer has meaning? Do you still love me? Or is it just a feeling of being trapped in a marriage you no longer want to be part of?" Each word I said was like a knife cutting into her heart, but I couldn't stop. The pain had made me unable to hold back the anger. She didn't answer. Silently, she sat down on the bed, hands covering her face as if she wanted to erase everything that had happened. I stood there, feeling as if I had lost a part of myself that could never be reclaimed. But then something inside me changed. I couldn't just sit there forever, waiting for her to explain. What I needed wasn't forgiveness or the happy life we once had. It was a way to regain the respect, the freedom I had lost. So I wasn't going to let her continue to ignore me. "Are you going on a business trip with Alex?" I asked again, but this time my voice was cold, no longer filled with anger, only indifference. "Are you going to keep living in this lie without thinking about the consequences?" Emily turned to look at me, her face surprised. "John, what are you saying? Can't you trust me?" She tried to act pitiful, but I wasn't going to let myself be deceived any longer. "Stop it, Emily. Don't treat me like a fool." In her eyes, I saw something. It wasn't regret. It wasn't an apology, but fear. She was afraid of something she wasn't even brave enough to face. As for me, I was too tired to keep seeking forgiveness. The decision had been made, and I wouldn't change. "This is the last time you can hurt me, Emily. The last time. If you step into this relationship, I won't allow you to come back. I won't let you be an example for our children." She stood up, eyes brimming with tears, but she said nothing. Everything was clear. I knew at that moment Emily was no longer the woman I had loved. She had changed, and so had I. I didn't know exactly what I would do next, but I knew I couldn't overlook this. The storm inside me was growing stronger. Hatred wasn't what I wanted, but at times like this, I had no choice, and I wasn't going to let this pass by easily. In the nights that followed, I couldn't sleep. I thought about Alex, about everything that had happened between them. Their relationship may not have lasted long, but I knew Emily's betrayal was deep enough to make me lose all respect for her. As for me, I couldn't continue living in a fake marriage. I couldn't continue accepting this deception. The pain within me flared up, but I didn't want revenge by hurting her even more. What I wanted was for her to understand that not everyone can hurt me easily without paying the price. But I wasn't going to do that impulsively. I would have a plan that would make her pay, not just for me, but for our children, for the family we had built together. Emily could go out. She could continue her relationship with Alex, but I wouldn't let her keep living in this lie, and I would make her realize the consequences of betraying my love. I was ready. My life was no longer the same. Every day felt heavy, as if I were living in a suspenseful movie where I was the main character in my own story. Each step I took, every decision I made became harder. I was no longer the carefree man who loved and cared for his family. I'd become a man who was hurt, betrayed, and now I needed to reclaim the respect I had lost. My plan started to form in my mind. This wasn't blind revenge, but a cost that Emily and Alex would have to bear so they could understand that their actions couldn't go without consequences. I didn't want to be the crazy one in a fit of rage, but I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted Emily to face the humiliation she had brought to this family. For me, it all began one evening when Emily received an invitation to attend a big event hosted by her company. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for. Emily didn't know that I had been tracking her every move during this time. I knew she would go with Alex, and I also knew that this would be the moment to execute my plan. The event was held at a luxurious hotel right in the city center. The atmosphere there was elegant, bustling, and filled with curious eyes from the attendees. Emily appeared looking stunning in a striking red evening gown beside Alex, who never left her side. Under the dim lights, they walked into the grand hall holding hands, as if there was nothing to hide. I stood in the corner of the room, not far from them, my eyes never leaving them. At a glance, every action they made felt like knives stabbing into my heart. I could clearly see the smugness in Alex's eyes and Emily's lack of confidence as she glanced around nervously, hoping not to be found out. But she didn't know that I had already planned every detail to make them face everything. As they made their way toward the bar, I quickly approached a few of Alex's colleagues, people I knew could be easily persuaded. I didn't intend to make a scene immediately, but I would make Emily bow her head in front of everyone. I had prepared a performance no one could have expected. When they were near the bar, I moved closer to Emily but didn't confront her directly. I just stood from afar and pretended not to recognize her. A few seconds later, I saw Alex turn around and stare at me, recognizing who I was, but I just smiled coldly. There seemed to be a misunderstanding, and Alex didn't want to stand out anymore. Things grew even more tense when I saw Emily head toward the restroom. I didn't waste any time. I followed her down the hallway where no one was paying attention. It felt as if everything was falling into silence. I could hear my own breath, and Emily's breath became more anxious. She turned and looked at me with a scared expression. "John, what are you doing?" she said, her voice hoarse. I stood a few steps away, staring straight into her eyes. "You think you can keep lying to me, Emily?" My voice was as cold as ice, without any emotion. "I know everything now, and now you will pay." Emily took a step back, her eyes filled with panic. "You can't do this. You can't embarrass me in front of everyone. I love you, but I also love Alex. I can't go back to you." "No, there's nothing left to come back to," I said, my voice like a knife. "I can't forgive someone like you, and don't expect to keep your dignity when I expose everything you've done with Alex." I almost whispered, but each word I spoke carried weight. Emily couldn't stop shaking. A feeling of triumph surged inside me as I saw the fear in her eyes. But that wasn't enough. I didn't just want Emily to be humiliated. I wanted Alex to face the consequences of his actions as well. I turned back to the party room where everyone was still enjoying the festivities. Emily didn't know that my plan was still unfolding. As I walked toward the center of the hall, I signaled a few of Alex's colleagues, and they quickly recognized me. One of them approached, eyes filled with suspicion. I just needed one look from him, and I knew everything would explode soon. He brought Alex over to me, and then I slowly said, "Alex, I think it's time for you to leave my and Emily's lives, and I want everyone to know about your relationship." The entire room fell silent. Every eye turned toward me, then shifted to Alex and Emily. I didn't feel joy seeing their embarrassment, but I felt relieved. This was the end they deserved. Emily bowed her head, and at that moment, I knew she would never look at me with the same eyes again. Innocent eyes again, she had destroyed everything. As for me, I felt as though I had been freed. The room seemed to stop breathing. Everyone watched quietly while Emily and Alex stood there, awkward and embarrassed. My gaze never left them. Each of their steps felt like an irreversible collapse. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to create chaos. All I wanted was for everyone to see the truth. They needed to realize the consequences of betrayal, of deceiving others without any shame. Alex, whom I had thought of as just a regular colleague, now appeared no different from a fraud in everyone's eyes. I didn't just want to expose him. I wanted him to feel the pain I had endured. But I didn't stop there. My actions today weren't just for revenge. They were to put an end to everything. Emily didn't say anything. She just stood there, her eyes full of tears, her face flushed with shame. She couldn't believe everything had been exposed. My words earlier were like a slap in her face. I didn't take satisfaction in hurting her, but I had no other choice. She had hurt me too deeply. A moment later, I saw the panic in Emily's eyes. She turned to Alex, her gaze pleading, as if begging him to help. But Alex just shook his head, his eyes no longer confident as before, seemingly realizing that everything had gone too far. He didn't dare stand up to protect Emily because he knew he no longer had the courage to face me. I didn't care about them anymore. They were no longer important in my life. They had lost the trust one had placed in them. I walked away, leaving them behind along with the curious gazes of those around. I didn't need their attention. Everything was already clear. A few days later, I decided that I wouldn't go back to Emily, no matter how much she begged or regretted. The feelings still lingered like unhealed wounds. Though there were times I wanted to forgive, no, I couldn't live with someone who didn't respect me like that. I needed to move on with my life without her by my side. Emily tried to call me every day, sending messages and emails apologizing, but I didn't respond. She had done enough. All I needed was space to heal and regain the dignity I had lost. But I couldn't just let everything pass like this. I needed to face my decision clearly. Both of our children, Jack and Lucy, had noticed a change in our family. Jack, my 7-year-old son, asked me a question I couldn't immediately answer. "Dad, Mom won't come back, will she? My heart ached. I had never imagined my son would have to face the breakup of our family. I took the time to explain to Jack that Mom and Dad had problems that needed to be solved. I didn't want to involve him in this, but I knew I couldn't hide the truth from him forever. And I also knew that no matter what, my family would never be the same again. Time couldn't be reversed. A week later, I decided to meet with Emily one last time. This time, I no longer had hope for a marriage that had long been dead. But I needed one final conversation to resolve everything. The meeting took place at a small cafe, a place where we used to date when we first got together. Everything now seemed like a distant memory, but I still wanted to keep it as a final goodbye. I can't forgive you, I said, my voice breaking, no longer cold. You betrayed me. And not just me. You betrayed yourself too. Emily stayed silent, but I knew she was trying to find an explanation. There was no excuse that could save us anymore. I didn't want to live in a life filled with lies. I needed a new life, a life where I could respect myself. I understand, Emily said, her voice distant, as if she didn't know what to do anymore. You need to move on. I just hope that one day you'll understand why I did this. We both stayed silent. I knew Emily would never understand the pain she caused, but I didn't need her to understand anymore. The words, the tears, it all felt like too little, too late. I decided once again to start my life over. Not that I had completely forgotten the memories of Emily, but I knew I needed to live for myself. I couldn't continue living in a broken marriage. I couldn't continue living with someone I no longer trusted. I moved into a small apartment near work where I could find peace. I no longer had to push myself for anyone else. I could focus on work, on my children, and on myself. Then I met Lena, a new woman who helped me heal from the wounds of the past. In the end, I realized that every betrayal has its price, but the most expensive price is when we let our self-respect be shattered. As I slowly pieced together the fragments of my life, I understood that forgiveness isn't always the right path. Sometimes, to move forward, we must know when to let go. Emily chose her path, and I chose mine, but what mattered was I would never lose myself again.